quite surprised at the amount of comments that I've had today. And I must confess, had I been a little bit more alert, a little bit less in pain, I probably would have done a lot more videos. But I've also had quite a lot of messages, direct messages. And well, thank you anyway for taking the time. As for Mr. Putin, I really don't know. As somebody pointed out, that there's a lot of the Dunning-Kruger effect going on. And I suppose that's also true, but people are entitled to their opinion, and people are entitled to put forward ideas. They're not always very cogent. And some people get carried away by the last person who's spoken. And I know that I'm partly guilty of that sort of thing as well. The last person who's spoken in my mind, of course, is Mr. Putin. And I don't know why anyone thinks Mr. Putin speaks good English. I know he speaks impeccable German, but his English is very halting. I would probably say to him at the moment something like как проходит жизнь в морозилке. What's it like in the fridge? What's it like in the freezer? Are you feeling a little chilly? But I find it very difficult to get it out of my head that there are doppelgangers. It's not the earlobes which do it. It's not the it's not the staged or the contrived script that does it. It's not the fidgeting and the jerking that does it. It's the animation, actually. It's the liveliness of the delivery. The delivery is just slightly too good to be entirely credible. And people have said, you know, when they look at Churchill, and when they look at who was the fellow who played Churchill? I can't remember. He was in Prick Up Your Ears or something like that at one point. Forget his name anyway. They said they could tell the difference between the actor and Churchill. Well, of course they can, because an actor, a named actor, an actor whose name is above the title, cannot quite remove all evidence of his own or her own personality from the character that they're portraying. So it's always going to be Helen Mirren as the Queen. But if you're not a named character actor, if you're not a named actor, I think there are ways in which you can definitely look almost identical to the real person you're portraying. And it's certainly possible to copy mannerisms accurately. And it only takes a little bit of effort, and it only takes a little bit of effort to learn a 2-hour monologue, interrupted or otherwise. And I thought the Putin interview the other night was a spectacular performance. Whether it was by Putin or by a doppelganger, it doesn't really make any difference. It was a spectacular performance. And a spectacular performance, incidentally, by both parties. Both Putin and Tucker Carlson gave superb performances. Not very convincing politically, and not very convincing as an interview, but very interesting as a demonstration, a sort of proof of life, I suppose. But in the end, I think not utterly convincing. That's my analysis, and I think it's also it was very telling that there was a barely coded message that this is what we would trade for Evan Gershkovitch, and there were a few veiled threats, but an overarching suggestion that there was time, there was an opportunity for discussions, negotiations, and I hope that will be seriously considered by all parties. Now is the time to be opening the channels to the Kremlin. Now is the time for peace, as now is the time also for peace in Israel. And when former Israeli prime ministers criticize serving prime ministers, I think now is the time. Now is the time for Netanyahu to recognize that he has been a silly boy on so many levels. He has managed to alienate all the goodwill that was pouring out from neighbors, from friends across the world, and from countries that were not so disposed towards Israel on October the 7th. And he has frittered away that goodwill with a desire to play action man and to be the war hero. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because his two aims were too confused: to release the hostages and to eradicate Hamas. You can only do one of those successfully. And he chose the wrong one, and that could not be done by a ground force of Israel alone in the time that he had available. That time was the time limit before international patience ran out. I think that time has come, and he has not completed his job. So, number one, of course, he failed on duty. He failed to protect Israel. And number two, he has failed in his mission to retaliate, to respond. There was a much better alternative, which I presented on many an occasion, which would have been an international federation, an army drawn up from neighboring countries that would go into Gaza to challenge and to root out the terrorism. And the fact that it would have been an international coalition, an army from an international coalition, would have given it a lot more validation, would have given it a lot more authority. But he didn't wait for that. And he didn't try to get his allies together to action that. He is the author of his own misfortune, but he is also the author and the individual responsible for the deaths of so many people. Not only the Palestinians in Gaza, but also the hostages. And he has put people's lives in danger, both Jews in Israel and around the world, and Palestinians in the Middle East, and Arabs in Israel. He has put all of these people in danger because of his manic desire to retain office. And I'm afraid the same sort of censure could be made towards President Putin. Dead or alive, who cares? He has put the lives of his own people at risk in the pursuit of this strongman image for no good reason. And that's one of the things that came across so clearly the other night, is that he keeps changing his reason for invading Ukraine. The reason changes every time he has to make a public statement. Is it to eradicate LGBTQ influence across the world? Is it a crusade for orthodoxy? Is it an anti-Nazi attack? Is it to restore the lost lands of Novorussia? Is it for Greater Russia? No. In the end, it's for the pride of Putin. And what is that pride of Putin when he's pushing up against the frozen peas from Smedley's in the deep freeze, when nobody can really tell the difference between the frozen peas and Putin's piles? What is the point of pride then? Dust to dust. And I feel really sorry that Putin has missed the opportunity to repent, has missed the opportunity to apologize to all those people in his own country who he's put at risk. All those thousands of mothers whose sons have been shipped off as cannon fodder. And the prisoners who've been fed lies about what will happen if they accept a role in the army. 6 months and you'll be free. No, they don't keep their word. It's not true. And releasing prisoners, is this the right thing to do for a government that's committed to locking up any opposition and talks about the rule of law? Murderers prowling the streets with weapons. It's inconsistent because there is only one rule, which is the survival of Putin. And I don't think that's succeeded. I think he's in the freezer. Anyway, that's my thought for this evening. There's a few other thoughts which have come to me. I'll see if I have the energy to get on with those. But I thought I'd like to give you that one before I sort of dry up this evening. And I, slipping over in the rain, in the mud, it just gets harder as you get older. And the pain is a sort of dull pain, and you just think, ow. And in the end, you run out of energy, and people ask you to do things like teach or whatever, and you just think, oh, now you're asking for too much. You're asking for, let's see all your materials, let's see this, let's see that. And you just think, for goodness sake. And yeah, so if I've been a bit short with people, I'm sorry, but I think that sometimes you just have to recuperate. And I wish Netanyahu would do that, and I wish Putin would do that. Recuperate in the fridge, in a bed, I don't care where, just take some time out and rest. And I took much of the afternoon off, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought initially I'd watch a film. I did watch a James McAvoy film for a short while, but mostly I did some animation, and I'm really happy to have done so. I've done some work that I feel is worthwhile, and I think I will do more of that over the next few days. I'm animating this little character. I did a soundtrack for it a long time ago, and it's a soldier coming home from the First World War who's got who's been bewitched by the theatre, and it's a bit camp and ridiculous, but in terms of animation, it's tremendous fun because I'm able to animate one of those wonderful First World War greatcoats and a ridiculous little First World War helmet. And I was going to put in a gun, and I think that's over egging the omelette. But I'm greatly enjoying making this great coat flap around, and one of the things I remember talking to Richard Williams, who's a great and revered animator who was a little bit spiky. I mean, he was a kind and delicious soul, and he took me under his wing when I was 11 years old, and we kept in touch, on and off, until he died. And I got on with my own projects independently, really, and I don't let many of them into public view, because I think, the last thing I wanted to be doing is drawing fluffy bunnies, and I'm interested in the idea that animation can be used to tell real stories. And Richard Williams was always interested in the camera moving as a third character, and I'm afraid I'm interested in the camera being still. And from that point of view, we're very different. But I'm interested in the idea of taking a character, and can that character command your attention without the camera thrusting you all over the place like some sort of helter-skelter joyride. I'm not opposed to the camera moving, but I would much prefer a gentle dolly backwards or a gentle dolly forwards, and at the same time, of course, changing the perspective as we go. But I don't like these quick camera movements. I feel a little bit nauseous. It gives me a sense of vertigo, and I don't like to impose that on others if I don't like it myself. But I love the challenge of trying to anchor something which is just a drawing into a sense of three-dimensional space, and to give it a sense of reality. And I would go a long way to trying to create that. And I must say I've enjoyed the process this afternoon, and it hasn't really helped my arm, but it has been distracting. So thank you. And I'll share some of it with you later.